Today's lecture is on practice management, and this is the business end of the practice, not the patient care end of the practice, but the business end of the practice. We have an organizational design. Some practices are physician-owned, and some are company-owned with a mid-level provider. There's always the chain of command or the organizational chart. So if it's physician-owned, the physician is the boss. You will have a practice manager, and the practice manager will oversee all the other staff. If this is a company-owned, then the physician is owned by the company, and so the practice manager and physician tend to be equal on that organizational chart as well. Managing the medical practice. Managers' communication skills. As a manager, now this lecture is about being the manager of a practice, not being a medical assistant, but about being a practice manager. So a manager needs to have great communication skills. You need to be able to convey your ideas to your staff, patients, to hospitals, to vendors, to employers, to contractors, and to government agencies in a professional and knowledgeable manner. We talk about policies and procedure manuals. It is up to the practice manager to maintain policy manuals. So if a policy changes, if we go from paper medical records to electronic medical records, there's going to be a policy for how we scan the paper medical records into the electronic record and for how long we keep those paper medical records once they've been scanned into the system. And procedures, is there a new payment system in place? Are we working with a new insurance company? So your practice manager is responsible for all the policies and procedure manuals in the office. Your practice manager is also responsible for making sure that licenses and certifications and contracts are current and on time, and that they are not like a physician's license hasn't expired. Just like a medical assistant, a physician needs to renew his license, her license, every year. It's done through the state. How about the budget and overall finance? It's the practice manager's responsibility to keep up on the budget and the overall finances and stay within that budget when at all possible. And the practice manager is going to manage petty cash if there is any in the office. How about scheduling travel and business functions? That's your practice manager's responsibility too. So they're going to schedule staff meetings with the clinical staff, with the front end staff, with the whole office. They might even schedule a holiday party for the office and close the office early. That is the practice manager's responsibility. And if you, as an MA, need to travel to a sister clinic, a mile down the road, then the practice manager will work on that schedule as well. What about these other business functions? The practice manager is going to make sure that your CEUs are in place and that they may need to do yearly, we call it mandatory in-service for fire safety for one thing, and for biohazard precautions and blood and bloodborne pathogen training. Every year it's up to the practice manager to make sure that that function of the business office is kept in place. Let's look at human resources and practice management. The hiring process. And human resources is in charge of the hiring process and the orientation of staff and then staff development. So orientation is, here's what we do for your first day on the job. You're going to learn about all the policies and procedures and the rules here. And then how are we going to keep you current, staff development. That's where some of those CEUs come in. And an employee handbook, and you'll have to sign off on sexual harassment. Usually as a new employee, you have to watch about a half hour to an hour long video and be tested on the sexual harassment policies of the state and the federal government. And what is your probationary period? Some probationary periods for new employees are 90 days and some are 60 days. And during that probationary period, you are told that you can be let go or you can leave the practice without prejudice, without giving a reason. But once the probationary period is over, then we have to document things that happen. And we document during the probationary period as well. Staff communication and agenda. What is your agenda for communicating with staff? When I worked in a hospital, the first thing we would do, we'd get there 15 minutes early, by the way, and you would look at your emails to find out if there were any meetings that day, where you needed to be, and what you needed to do. We have labor relations because some hospitals and clinics are part of a union, of the hospital workers union or the nursing union. We have the Mass Nursing Association here in Massachusetts. So labor relations, if you have a complaint, you can go to your boss, but if you have a complaint about a procedure or your boss or anything else, your practice manager handles these grievances. You go to your union rep and you file a grievance. And then the union rep will talk with the practice manager and see if they can't mediate and solve the problem without having to go any further. That's what labor relations is all about. It's about making sure that the employees are heard and that the human resources can mediate and take care of problems that may need to be taken care of. Being a leader. How do you become a leader? You build your team and you set goals for your team and you learn to listen and to find ways for your team to work together. Diversity and leadership are huge all over the place these days. And what is diversity? Diversity means that you hire people from all different backgrounds as long as they're certified to do their work, to work in your place of business, and you are a good leader. How do you be a good leader? Leaders don't just tell people what to do. They have guidelines and rules, and then they listen. And they learn from listening to their employees, and they help their employees learn and listen and learn new skills as well. Risk management and quality assurance. What is risk management and quality assurance? And you'll see from the diagram here that we talk about risk management or quality assurance in that we try to identify problems before they happen so they won't happen. All right. So we want to identify a possible problem. We want to assess it and look at it. How can we fix it? So we've got a way to fix this problem. Now, let's see if it really works. All right. And if it does, and if it's working well, great. If it's not, we're going to reevaluate it and see if we can improve it along the way. And we'd like to do this before problems happen. But if there is a slip and fall on the floor because there's water, is it leaking from someplace, or did somebody spill ice and not clean it up? Then an incident report is written up. And again, we start the identification process all over again. And we learn from our mistakes. We'd like to learn from mistakes before they happen so no one is injured. Handling payroll. Your practice manager is going to have to handle payroll. And this is part of the process of handling payroll. You have to apply for tax identification numbers as a business. And you create an employee payroll information sheet. So you know when you get hired, you have to fill out all that paperwork. You have to do the Form I-9. The Form 1-9 is about showing your citizenship. So you have to show your license and your passport, or two forms of picture ID. And your pay schedule and payroll type. So what kind of pay schedule are you on? Every 2 weeks. And your payroll type is either by check or electronic funds transfer or direct deposit. And how many dependents do you have? So you have to fill out the Form W-4. And voluntary deductions. Do you want anything taken out? Maybe for those medical bills that you know you're going to have because your 12-year-old's in braces. Gross earnings. And this is the Fair Labor Standards Act. All right. So in gross earnings, it's how much has the practice made, how much does the employee make before anything is taken out. Gross earnings is how much you make before anything is taken out. And then we have to start making deductions. We have tax liability, okay? We have to do FICA taxes. We have to do Medicare taxes. The practice has to pay into unemployment taxes as well, and to workman's comp taxes. So there's a lot for the practice manager to handle in payroll. And calculating and filing taxes. Now we have to file taxes as a practice manager. We have to set up tax liability accounts, and we have to understand the federal tax deposit schedules. Do you pay your taxes once a year as a practice? Do you pay them every quarter? We have to submit federal income taxes, the FICA taxes from our employees' payroll. We have to submit federal unemployment tax or the State Unemployment Tax Act taxes as well. And we have filing employers' quarterly federal tax returns. So we do have to file a quarterly return. And we have to file state and local income tax returns as well. And I think in Massachusetts, you can do it monthly, quarterly, or yearly. We have to file wage tax statements or W-2s. You all get them at the end and they have to be given to you from your employer by the end of January after the filing year. So for 2019, we have to receive our W-2s by the last business day of January of 2020. So there is a lot going on with the practice manager and all these different taxes that have to be accounted for. That is the end of today's lecture on practice management.